Zhao Shanghao. It's 5:30 a.m. in the morning, and whoop whoop. I'm just doing some reading here of the book Daoist Nagon by Mr. Damo Mitchell. And yeah, I very much enjoy being part of the course. I do have a membership. Actually, it's just expired, but I'm going to get a new one with their online course. And yeah, it's a good pleasure to. It's good to be in the group as well, their Facebook group, and to have the opportunity to query the author. It's I've spoken at length with people, and I will say that not everyone agrees, and I think they don't really. Not everyone agrees with kind of my, I guess, my will to present my approach. Okay, let me read a passage here, and I'll explain a little bit, talk about them more, and inquire more into about what I'm saying, and then build what do you call that? For example, if you started watching a movie towards the end, then you wouldn't know. But if you started watching from the start, the context, I would build the context. So bear with me. It's 5:30 a.m. in the morning, and build a context here, and then I'm going to kind of experience this as I do. I'm more of a experiential kind of person. So let's read this chapter here. It's page 202 of the book. The chapter is regulating and shaping the mind. So it's chapter 6, regulating and shaping the mind, and kind of everything up to before chapter 6 is basically about the body. Preparing the body for the process of Nagon, for the process of internal, transformation of the mind, body, and head. And now we're talking about something a little bit more advanced, regulating and shaping the mind. And so we've basically from the start of this chapter, we've covered, again, we've gone into the 5-character secret, which is basically 5. Try not to spoil it too much. Just buy the book if you want to understand and fully comprehend. Just buy the book. Buy the book. But we've gone through the 5-character secrets, which is these 5 essential, qualities, which are a causal chain, which means that if you understand the first one and you can kind of absorb that, you can embody the quality of the first one, then that will lead to the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one, and the next one, provided you have consistency with your training. So that's the 5-character secret, and that will, that's kind of still very much basically about the body, but as you get towards the kind of the 5th stage, then you're quite but the mind becomes a big thing. Your belief system. If you have a belief system that and your actions, your the quality of your mind is really, will influence and will, it could even be a limiting factor. It could be an enabling factor. It just depends on your constitution, your mind, your motivations, who you are. So let's talk about Daoists versus Confucians. So page 202, we're going to go down from Daoists versus Confucians. Interestingly, the nature of the xing and de, commonly translated as virtues. So firstly, the xing is referring to your xing, actually I think is the same character for sex in Mandarin, but it also means your physical your physical constitution. And then the counterpart to the xing is the ming. The ming is your I believe it translates to, directly translated to the most kind of accurate meaning in English would be like destiny would be ming. Interestingly, I met a person yesterday a couple days ago. It was the sunset, and I saw a woman there doing some prayer towards the sun, and her name was Ming, so that's very interesting. And I think that probably, I don't know, maybe some Chinese people, Mandarin speakers, can tell me this Chinese name, if someone's name is Ming, is that referring to, is that the Ming as in the destiny, or is that another Ming as a name for a person? So basically, xing, it means your physical postnatal acquired quality, and ming is your prenatal quality, your kind of spiritual, on a spiritual level, but not just before birth, but it's also kind of referring to a little bit going into almost like past lives kind of thing, and your past lives, and also with that also your what kind of spiritual path you're headed on, based on what you've based on your whole spiritual quality of the whole map of who you are from your past lives heading into the future. So it's not just about the past or the future, but it's kind of everything. So these two are the xing and the ming, and in Daoist Neigong practice is actually to fuse these two qualities back together. When we're born, basically these two qualities, split apart, and then as we get older, they get further and further apart, and then it's, as we age, we deteriorate in some way, and maybe we lose a little bit of that. But so in Neigong, it's actually, the practice is based on this concept of allowing the muddy water to settle. So very much based on sitting practice, and stilling the mind, and coming back to our for lack of a better way to say it in English, our true nature, and then allowing these two qualities, xing, the acquired kind of self, and then the destiny, to merge together again. So let's start again here. Interestingly, the nature of xing and de. So the de is actually from Dao De Jing, and this de, it means virtue. So the Dao De Jing means the Tao of Virtue manuscript or Bible. This word Jing, it means kind of like Bible. So starting here. The nature, interestingly, the nature of Xing and De, commonly referred to as virtues, is where you will find the largest divide between Daoism and the other main tradition to come out of China, Confucianism. De is a fundamental aspect of Daoism. Its prominence is shown in being one of the three characteristics of one of the most important classics, the Dao, Dao De Jing. The De virtue is seen to be the purest manner in which a person can interact, perceive, and react to the world, which from the outside should appear as wisdom and should appear as a wisdom and compassion incarnate. So if you really master this De according to the Dao De Jing, then you will kind of all your actions, all your the way you interact, perceive, and react to the world will all be to the highest possible virtue, and you will become like an incarnation of the quality of wisdom and compassion. So for Daoism, a state of connection to the De is the natural way for a human to express their relationship and interactions. Therefore, the more one strips away the acquired self, the more the De should arise, a constant state of original being. The Confucianists, however, viewed humans very differently. Within their traditions, humans don't inherently have virtue or De, but rather the virtues ought to be trained and maintained through external tools. It is a similar divide in thought as the more Western nature versus nurture. Okay, so it is a similar divide in thought as the more Western nature versus nurture. So it's the same way that we would compare. So in the Eastern traditions, they talk about internal and external methods. Daoism, the Daoist practice is about internally using internal tools, and you're not really that concerned about ethics or morale, and you're not that concerned about ethics or morality in Daoism. It's not to say that Daoists are don't care about ethics and morality. It's just that is not how you transform yourself in Daoism. In Daoism, it is purely through internally through stillness, through unbiased stillness. Going back to your true nature. And I think the Daoists would view using external tools that are based on these ethics and these morals and these what's the other word? What's the kind of political word? Moral ethics. I'm just thinking it reminds me of like there's different this ism, that is communism, socialism, fascism, or democracy, autocracy, technocracy. What do you call these? Ideals, right? So the Daoists, they don't use ideals or ethics or morale. They don't use belief or adherence. They don't use belief or adherence to ethics, morale. What's that one I just said? It's 5:30 a.m. in the morning here. ideals, right? So they don't. So the Taoists do not use adherence to ideals or morale or ethics as a way to change themselves. They are more based on a stillness practice, which is again based on an unbiased. They would view that as being a biased thing. And the Confucians are kind of a lot very different to the Taoists. They use those external tools. So we're going to learn about that, here. So let's start it here again. So for Daoism, a state of connection to the Dua or virtue is the natural way for a human to express their relationship and interactions. Therefore, the more one strips away the acquired self, the more the Dua should arise, a constant state of original being. The Confucianists, however, viewed humans very differently. Within their traditions, humans don't inherently have Dua, but rather the virtues ought to be trained and maintained through external tools. External tools like, adherence to ethics, morals, and probably some kind of, what was that word I used? A little kind of one that slips by my mind again. Communism, socialism, fascism, autocracy, democracy. Ideals, okay. Ideals. So the Confucianists, however, viewed humans very differently. Within their traditions, humans don't inherently have Dua, but rather the virtues ought to be trained and maintained through external tools like, probably some kind of ideals and strict adherence to ethics and some sort of decided upon, morale and that kind of thing. Okay. It is a similar divide in thought as the more Western nature versus nurture, right? So the Taoists are more about true nature. They say that it is already within our true nature, our Xin and our Min is already within our true nature, so we don't need any external tools or really that much knowledge about the outside world. We're purely just stilling the muddy water and allowing ourselves to be gradually more and more unbiased and come back to our true nature. Whereas the Confucianists, they say no, we must nurture that. The only way they say that they have to nurture those qualities into you through external tools. So yeah, maybe you've heard of that. So the Western way of expressing that kind of dichotomy or this versus that, they'll say nature versus nurture argument. And I believe, this is Damo saying, and I believe it is this fundamental difference in philosophical thought that created a strong divide between the two schools of thought, those two schools being Daoism and Confucianism. Right, so let's talk about virtues, qualities, and precepts. Virtues, qualities, precepts. The virtue that a person brings out through their practice is very fundamental in Daoism. The virtue that a person brings out through their practice is very fundamental within Daoism. So that's interesting and it's important to note because so the Confucianists, they would disagree that they would not necessarily, some might, but not generally speaking, they would not attempt to try to bring out virtue through some kind of practice. They would bring it in through adherence to these external tools and knowledge and things. They're very much about reading a lot of books. And for example, the Koreans. The Koreans are a very strong Confucian kind of ideology or thinking. They very much do a lot of study and reading. So the virtue that a person brings out through their practice is very fundamental within Daoism. Daoism is not inherently interested in the morality behind being a compassionate and wise human. However, this state helpfully brings about in a person exactly the right internal environment for internal advancement. Okay, let's just think about what this means. We're going to have to start again here so we can fully understand it. So starting again from the top of the big paragraph here of the virtues, qualities and precepts on page 203. The virtues that a person brings out through their practice is very fundamental within Daoism. Daoism is not inherently interested in the morality behind being a compassionate and wise human. However, this state, that's the state being a compassionate and wise human being, helpfully brings out in a person exactly the right internal environment for internal advancement. Right. So what is being said here is that Confucianism is basically complementary to Daoism in some way, because if we are wise, by perhaps reading a lot of books or having some awareness about the outside world and the relationships between perhaps different politics and different people and different creeds and races and genders, and having a knowledge of dynamics that are going on around and being aware of stuff and being compassionate and kind of externally, and by externally doing that, that will change your internal landscape, your internal mental and perhaps your internal mental, emotional, spiritual landscape. It will change your internal. It will helpfully brings about in a person exactly the right internal environment for internal advancement. Therefore, attaining a state of true compassion and wisdom is to be strived for, so as to find this internal point within the body. Another element within Daoism is the Xin, so not Xing, X-I-N-G, but Xin is just X-I-N, Xin, which means heart. So another element within Daoism is the Xin, often translated as heart or heart-mind, as the two are interchangeable, right? So in Chinese, this concept of heart is basically very much linked together with some kind of consciousness or some kind of awareness. So it's not just about the beating heart. There's some kind of some aspect of consciousness, there. Some aspect of mind. Let's put it that way. It doesn't specifically say consciousness. It says mind. As the two, heart and mind, are interchangeable. That's in Chinese medicine, Chinese martial arts, Qigong, Chinese philosophy, to are interchangeable. It is through the Xin that the purest expression of information can be expressed, the or virtue. If a person manages to sustain and express this level of purity, their expression of pure consciousness, here we go, shines through their speech and actions. Let's read that again. If a person manages to sustain and express this level of purity, their expression of pure consciousness shines through their speech and actions. As a byproduct of the generation of virtue, a person is said to be eroding the influence of cause and effect upon their being, a process simply termed yeah. Okay, but I just show this because some Mandarin speakers, they may not know which year this is. But okay, maybe let's just see if we can. Let's see. Can you see this? So that is the year. This is the year that we're showing. Very important to show specifically which character it is, because one Chinese character can have a very fundamental meaning. So let's see here. As a byproduct of the generation of duo, a person is said to be eroding the influence of cause and effect upon their being, a process simply termed duo. The Daoist approach to the concept of karma. Right, so karma, and that's coming from the Indian, Vedic tradition. When we think about that, I think we're thinking about good karma, bad karma. Something happens to you, something bad happens to you if you did something bad to someone. Maybe something good happens to you if you help a lot of people, or if you helped some. If you helped to set in motion, or if your thoughts and actions are setting in motion, positive change in the world, well then you're lining yourself up for goodness, for good karma. That in Mandarin, in Daoist philosophy, is just called cause and effect. That's what they call it. It's just cause and effect. The Taoist approach to the concept of karma. For most people, the de, virtue, generally becomes distorted into emotion. This is why within Chinese medicine textbooks, the emotions are treated as pathogens rather than positive states of being. Whilst that's not to say people shouldn't experience emotions, pragmatically within Daoism, each emotion experienced and attached to by the mind merely adds layers to the acquired self. So, although emotions, is normal or perhaps even a fundamental part of human consciousness, or at least the state of consciousness that we experience in our body, emotions are very much a fundamental kind of part of that in some way. However, adherence to emotions and it adds layers to the acquired self, which means it adds more clutter, it adds more complications internally. So we have to be able to allow the muddy water to settle, and that means to be unbiased. When we experience different emotions, we suddenly become emotionally attached and biased, and it adds layers to our acquired self, which is very problematic. So we have to find a way around that, in for Neigong tradition. Whilst that's not to say people shouldn't experience emotions, pragmatically within Daoism, each emotion experienced and attached to by the mind merely adds layers to the acquired self. This addition of layers moves people away from a heightened state of being, increasing the difficulty in finding and working with the mechanics behind more advanced practices. This process of virtues being transformed into emotions is summarized in figure 6.4. And so we'll just have a look at this one. And this is actually a similar kind of correlation chart. We've got the Yuan Shen, I think it means the original spirit. And then that one divides into 5 other spirits. which are, I think these 5 in Chinese medicine are also correlated with the 5 organs, the heart, the liver, the kidney, the lungs, and the spleen, I think. And then each one of those is also correlated with an emotion. And then, you know, attachment to that emotion, for example, I think the spleen is responsible for digestion in Chinese medicine, and the muscles and the tissues. So in order for the nutrients to get to the muscles and the tissues, we need to digest. But you see, and the spleen helps to do that. But you see, the spleen is correlated with worry. So if we become too worried, then the function of the spleen is hampered, is distorted, is influenced in a negative way. And then we can't digest the food, and then we can't build enough muscle, and then we become weak. And yeah. So let's have a look at this chart. Let's have a look. So there we have the Yuan Shin, and then we have the 5 spirits, the Shin, which is the highest one. This is the kind of pure consciousness, and its original state of being is contentment, and if we have the opposite of contentment, which is excitation, then that will damage the Shen. It will. These are the pathological emotions. These are the original kind of balanced states of being, and these are the 5 spirits that result from the balanced state of being, that result from the unbiased balanced state of being, and then this is the original spirit. So we have, of course, we have contentment, patience, bravery, empathy, wisdom, and then we have the emotions, which will unbalance those ones. So the emotions, basically, we have to kind of get rid of them, so that we can work with these ones in our practice, so that we can purify the 5 spirits, and then so that we can get back to the Yuan Shin. Yep, and then I think that's enough. Otherwise, it will be too long a video. So yeah, I guess what I was explaining in the start is kind of, I'm kind of just trying to build a context here. Because I'm talking about it's kind of Daoism versus Confucianism kind of dynamic. Really, that is almost the fundamental part of that, which comes into it. So the Confucian part is external tools based, also very much knowledge based, and having an awareness, having a knowledge, allowing a thorough study and investigation of external conditions in the world. Whereas Taoists, they don't see that as really as necessary at all. Some of them, it's purely about the stillness, internal, based method, and I think that's where often that feels that is the fundamental kind of the root cause of this argument, that I get into with these people, because Taoists, they may see, but Daoism is basically the fundamental root of Neigong practice. This is where Neigong practice is based in. Neigong practice is not so much based in Confucianism. Confucianism does have some Qigong, I think, in there, but it's not so much a Neigong kind of practice. So that's interesting. What's interesting is that, you know, you don't need to have such a big knowledge about so many things happening in the world and such a broad knowledge about, you know, very specific a lot of stuff, and having read a lot of books, or understanding what's happening behind the scenes in the world, understanding, you know, the messed up nature of wars, and, you know, like what's really going on in the behind the scenes in politics and stuff, because it's not what it looks like from the outside. And this is the kind of, I guess the problem I have, the thing I run into with a lot of these people that are just purely based on their Daoist based Neigong, and they don't want to get into you know, discussions, or they'll say, oh, I don't want to get into, you know, discussions or arguments or whatever about external things happening in the world, because it's just people are gonna, you know, argue about it and have different opinions about it, and it's going to be this versus that and all this. But from a Confucian point of view, that is important, actually. So I feel that I do feel that you know, it's important to understand what's really going on in the world today as a complete Neigong practitioner. Well, maybe not, actually. Maybe not. To be a complete Neigong tradition. Well, actually, maybe Neigong is not so much about completeness. It's more about, you know, original, you know, nature, and getting back to the emptiness. So it doesn't really need an awareness of all this stuff. I like both of them, you know. I like them both. I need to know what's going on in the world. I need to do a lot of research, and you know, people, will disagree with me, because they will say that even though what I'm saying is true, what I have researched and what I have experienced, what I have you know, unearthed, what I have unearthed about, you know, what's really going on in the world. Okay, I realise that it's true, but it's kind of it's controversial, or people can't handle the truth, and blah blah blah. So it's better just to do the Taoist practice, and, you know. But I just feel that I have some sort of responsibility as a human being, you know, that's part of I guess, Confucianism. So let me know what you think about that.